Stephen Fulton is a world-class fighter, two-time world champ. He originally entered this fight, and a lot of people were talking about he had a real possibility to be the first time three-division world champion in Philadelphia's history. Think about the storied legacy that Philadelphia has. And then Stephen Fulton had the opportunity to be the first time three-division world champ. First time coming out of that city, man. It would have been awesome. Now, look, he blew that opportunity when he couldn't even make 130 pounds. Get that. Dude shows up to the scale 2 pounds overweight. I won't even talk about the fact of how crazy it is to move up in weight and still miss weight. We won't even talk about that fact. I'm just trying to get the credentials straight here. Stephen Fulton, 2-division world champion. The man is very, very talented. Very, very good fighter. And I'm going to come out here and I'm going to say this with all due respect. I have never seen a world-class fighter look that confused in a fight. This wasn't De La Hoya versus Pacquiao, where he was old and he was washed. This was Stephen Fulton moving up in weight. So in theory, he was going to be hydrated well, feeling good. Didn't even make the weight. Didn't even have to cut down to the full 130 pounds. Comes in at 132. 31 years old. And goes out there and looks incredibly confused. And nobody came into this fight thinking that O'Shaquie Foster was some absolute phenom. This was basically a 50-50 fight on paper. Full disclosure, I actually thought that Fulton was going to figure out a way to pull this out. I thought that he was going to be able to figure out a way to come out with a victory. I was never doubting what Foster brought to the table, but you got to go with somebody. And I was ended up going with Fulton. And wow, I couldn't have been more wrong. I couldn't have been more wrong. The last time in my mind that I can think about a guy seeming this confused in a fight was when Floyd Mayweather put a beating on Canelo. Canelo, he went on to be a much better fighter, but he was already operating at the highest levels of the sport when he stepped into the ring with Floyd Mayweather. Now, he was a young guy. I want to say he was 23, 24 years old at the time. He had a lack of experience in some ways, whereas Fulton came in 31 years old. But he looked incredibly confused in that fight, and Stephen Fulton looked incredibly confused in this one. I remember there was a time in between the rounds, maybe the 8th, the 9th round. You got his trainer over there, Bosey's looking at me saying, you need to let your hands go. Fulton looks like he's not even paying attention to him. He's kind of looking around a little bit. You know, he's not sitting down in between the rounds. He looks incredibly confused, like he doesn't even know what to do. And it makes me wonder a few things. First is, what were you doing in training camp? Honestly, what were you doing in training camp? Because you knew the physical dimensions of the guy that you were stepping in there against. You knew that this dude was long. You knew about his fast hands. You knew about the way that he was going to be able to utilize distance. And, I mean, let's be honest with each other. This was probably the best that O'Shaquie ever looked. He looked phenomenal out there. The way that he was controlling the distance, the way that he was on point with his punches, the way that he was using that counter right hook and just catching Fulton every time he wanted to come in and completely just stifling everything that he brought to the table. It also reminded me of Fundora versus Tszyu. Remember Fundora versus Tszyu, the way that you looked and you were like, wow, this is how we thought Fundora was supposed to look, X amount of fights ago. Because he was just going out there and he was able to completely control the distance, completely dominate with the jab, and every single thing that Tszyu tried to do, Fundora had an answer for it. It was just that easy. That's what we saw with O'Shaquie Foster, man. That right, when he switched to southpaw, Fulton would try to come in with the right hand to the body. The way that he was countering him with the right hook, the way that he was dominating with the jab, he was moving. He was even able to start getting downhill on him, man. He was even able to start walking Fulton down as the bigger man with the longer reach. People thought that he was going to be weight drained because it's a tough weight cut. Looked awfully dry at that weigh-in. Still figured out a way to go hard for 12 rounds, throwing a lot of punches. Incredibly impressive performance. Incredibly impressive. As far as Stephen Fulton, like what's this dude going to do now? I know he wants to take it all in stride. He's sitting there in the locker room afterwards and he's saying this is part of the game. This is how things happen. And that's a true statement. But honestly, when you sit there at this point, what do you do? I mean, it makes me wonder about the discipline or the professionalism, seeing as how he came in 2 pounds over with this type of a performance. I didn't feel that way when he came in 2 pounds over at the weigh-in. When he came in 2 pounds over at the weigh-in, I thought it was a professionalism issue, but I figured that he was going to come in prepared. I thought it was an issue where he was blowing the weight because he didn't want to cut down. He was like, hey, I'm not going to get the world title on this one. It doesn't matter that the belt's on the line. I feel more comfortable winning, getting the payday. And then once I, establish myself at the weight a little bit more, then I'll worry about getting the belt and I will still earn the accolades of being the 3-division world champion from Philadelphia. That's kind of what I thought his plan was. We've seen fighters do it in the past. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it's very unprofessional. I think it makes for an unfair playing field. But we've seen guys do it. So when he comes in overweight, that's my thought. Because why would I think that the man couldn't make the weight when he was moving up in weight already? Why would I think that he was unprepared when it's such a big fight? Why would I think that he would come in and, not be ready for the moment or the event? But when he doesn't come in and make weight, and then we see the performance that we did, where he looks so confused. And like I said, it just makes me wonder, what did you prepare for? What were you doing in camp? How did you prepare? And the reason I say that is because he made no adjustments. It seemed like he had no answer. He comes out initially and it's like you see him throw the jab a little bit. Okay, I can understand that. You're the shorter guy, you're the smaller fighter out there, but you want to establish the jab. Makes perfect sense. You feel you've got the better footwork, you feel you've got the faster hands, you feel you've got the better timing or understanding of distance. So you want to be the guy to go out there and establish that jab, because he wouldn't be the first guy to be the smaller guy in a fight who's skilled enough to be the guy who establishes the jab. Wouldn't have been the first time. Great. So you start going with the right hand to the body. Man, we've seen that before. Stephen Fulton has a good right hand to the body, coming in from the outside, leading with it. So we saw that a few times. Okay, I could see that start to go. But as soon as those things no longer worked, and it didn't take very long, but as soon as those things no longer worked, what were you going to go to? What was your answer if Fulton was able to, if Foster was able to come out and establish that jab? What were you going to do at that point? Were you just going to keep your head on the center line and keep your hands up? Is that what you worked on the whole time in training camp? And I get that it's easy to sit here as the Monday morning quarterback and criticize. But I just saw that man go out there for 12 rounds and basically pack it in. We just watched him go out there for 12 rounds and have no adjustments. A guy at a world-class level, 31 years old, who's supposed to be in his physical prime, who's supposed to have an entire training camp. And I don't mean to minimize what Foster did, okay? O'Shaquie looked great, but we didn't see him take any chances. So the only thing that I can assume is that when he's standing in there in front of him, he's getting peppered with these shots. He doesn't want to take any chances because he feels he's going to get knocked out. He goes, hey, if I start to really try to push this issue, this guy is he's twitchy fast tonight. He's hitting, everything is has perfect accuracy. It's got perfect timing. He's got such control of the distance. I really don't have any options. Anything that I even think of trying, this dude already has me figured out and he's just going to hurt me. But it makes me go back and say, how could that be? How could it be that you didn't have any tricks up your sleeve? How could it be that you looked physically unprepared, like you weren't on the same level with your reaction speed as he was, with your hand speed as he was, with your foot speed as he was? What happened? Did you not train enough? Were you overtrained? Was your nutrition not on point? Was your strength and conditioning not on point? I mean, I get that this sounds critical and everything like that, and maybe somebody wants to look and just say, hey, Ryan, keep in mind, weight classes exist for a reason. We've seen guys be able to blow through them because they're incredibly skilled before. Not the least of which was Terrence Crawford moving up and fighting Canelo. But at the end of the day, we all believe that weight classes exist for a reason. And this just came to reinforce that. So everybody who thought that they didn't, everybody who thought that, weight classes were a relic of the past and they didn't matter anymore with the modern fighters and everything, this was just an example of why they did. Okay, I get that. I agree that weight classes exist for a reason too. But that doesn't explain what we saw from Fulton. Because if we just look at the eye test, if we just look at what he was doing, he did not look like a man that we had seen in the past. He did not look like a man who was ready. He didn't look like a man who was prepared. So he can try to take it all in stride. But dude, that was a rough and disappointing performance. I'm not saying the man's washed up. I'm not saying the man's done. I'm saying the man better have something in store for us the next time he comes out. He better have a plan. He better be able to do something. Because with the physically the way that he looked, like I said, again, he didn't look quick. He didn't look like his reaction speed was on point. He didn't look like his foot speed and his hand speed were all on point like we expect. With the lack of a game plan, no adjustments. I mean, think about this for a simple fact. You can't get in with your hands. Okay, you're outside, you're at distance. He's trying to get in with the right hand to the body. Okay, right? He's moving forward and throwing that punch at the same time. That's what he's trying to get in with. Well, that's not working. You're getting caught with right hooks. You're getting countered with a jab. The dude's stepping off, cutting an angle. Whatever it is, you can't make that happen. What's the next step after that? If I was sitting in there and I was talking to the guy, I'd tell him you got to get in with your feet. Don't close the distance by using your feet and throwing a punch at the same time. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to keep our hands in our defensive position, whatever defensive position you have. He was coming in, he had his hands up pretty well. Not like a super high guard, but he had his hands up. Keep your hands in that position. Close the distance with your feet so that when you get in to range, that's when you can throw your punch. Don't start to throw it from the outside and then cover the distance. Get inside, close the distance, and then punch when it can be a really short punch when you're going to be able to land it. And you can't just come straight in. Obviously, we're talking about how sharp O'Shaquie's looking tonight with the crisp counters. So you're going to have to come in, you're going to have to use foot feints. And you're probably going to have to use a defensive head movement before All of that before you ever throw the first punch. So you're coming in and you're using foot feints to attempt to throw off his timing. And then you're coming in and you're planning on using a defensive head movement before you get that punch off because you know how sharp he is. You got to have this guy start to doubt himself somehow. You can't have his confidence, just confidence through the roof, man, because everything he's doing is working. And I didn't see any of that from Fulton. I didn't see any of it. And that's what kind of makes me wonder in the sense of what were you preparing for? What were you doing? What adjustments did you have in store? What did you think Oshaki's game plan was going to be? What did you think he was going to excel at? And how were you going to attack that and defeat it? Right? Because that's what training camp's about. That's what you do when you sit down there and you game plan and you strategize and you go out there and you execute. And then if that doesn't work, because guess what? The other guy's got to vote. The other guy's got to vote. He's going to be doing what he wants to do to get off on you. That's when you have to start to make adjustments. As a side note, it's one of the things that made Floyd Mayweather so great. It wasn't just the game plan that he came into the fight with. It was his ability to adjust on the fly. One of the best in that regard. Absolutely phenomenal to watch the chess match as it developed throughout the fight. And then as soon as he got that advantage, as soon as he got to one point in the plan where he stepped it to that turn that next corner and he realized that you didn't have an answer for that, he just stayed there and pummeled you until the final bell rang. It was that easy. So let me know what you guys think. Am I being too hard on the man? I mean, again, Stephen Fulton, I'm not trying to say that he's washed up. I'm not trying to say that he's done. I'm not trying to say that we'll never see an awesome performance from the man again. But I am saying that last night was more than just a bad performance. It was more than just a loss. It was one in which I was surprised by the performance that he put on. So am I being too rough? Or is this a situation where I should just be giving O'Shaquie Foster more credit? I thought the guy was a good fighter. I thought that he was going to be able to come out there and do good things. Didn't think he was going to be able to do that to a Stephen Fulton. Let me know what you guys think.